Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, while Bitcoin is still playing out this massive warning signal on the larger time frames, we're seeing the price of Bitcoin potentially coming in for another test of this descending line of resistance in the somewhat shorter term. So I'll be talking about that in just a moment, alongside Ethereum still forming this new bullish divergence, while the price of Solana is getting extremely close to breaking below this critical area of support. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the 4-day Bitcoin price chart, and right now the price of Bitcoin here in the super trend indicator is still flashing this red signal, so nothing's changed on this chart over the last 1 day. And if we're taking a look at this weekly time frame right here, we can see that the weekly Bitcoin MACD, at least for now, is still looking more bearish than it is bullish. It's still sitting in the red, in the negative territory if we're looking at the histogram within the MACD indicator. But with that being said, in recent weeks, just over the last couple of weeks or so, we've basically slowed down the amount of bearish momentum. And so once again, it's not necessarily looking bullish right now. It's just not necessarily looking as bearish as what it was looking like a few weeks ago, close to 1 month ago now. And with that being said, if we're taking a look at this weekly Bitcoin chart, obviously right now we still have this significant warning signal that I've been talking about since pretty much the beginning of this year at almost all-time highs, basically telling you that we have a massive bearish divergence on the weekly time frame, with higher highs confirmed in the price and lower highs confirmed in the weekly Bitcoin RSI. And so obviously this is still a massive bearish divergence, telling us we're most likely going to see either a larger pullback or at the very least a sideways consolidation. So basically no significant bullish momentum anytime soon. And once again, I've been saying that for months now on the channel, but of course we can see some short-term bullish price action here and there, like smaller bullish moves on smaller time frames, bounces from support and things like that, but just don't necessarily expect massive high momentum movements towards the upside, at least anytime soon. Obviously, further in the future, at some point, we'll likely see another move like that, just not necessarily straight away. And with that being said, if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin price chart, obviously right now the price of Bitcoin is still trading around this Fibonacci level, which is sitting at approximately 83.3k. So around that 83k level, we do have a bit of support and resistance. Basically, the price is kind of trading around that level once again, but the significant level of resistance to watch out for is sitting at around 88,000 on this Bitcoin price chart right here. And if we see a breakout above 88,000, then I'll be watching around 91.5 to 92k, and above that I'll be watching around 96,000. And if we're taking a look at the 3-day time frame, once again we have a lot of resistance in between 86,000 to 88,000. Once again, that 88k level is the critical level to watch out for. And then if we can break out above that level, we have more resistance on this chart at around 96,000, coinciding with this chart right here. And so at least for now, obviously I'd not necessarily flip massively bullish again on the price of Bitcoin straight away until we at least see a breakout confirm, with candle closes confirming above around 88,000. We need to at least break out above that point before we can finally start flipping a little bit more bullish again on the price of Bitcoin. And in the meantime, obviously we're currently playing out a bit of choppy sideways price action in the short term, bouncing from support, rejecting from short-term resistance, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But first, the next significant area of support to the downside here on this 3-day time frame is still sitting in between around 70,000 to 74,000. So if the price of Bitcoin actually gets there, we'll likely find a lot of demand around there. And with that being said, if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin price chart, obviously we still have this descending line of resistance, which is currently sitting at roughly around 85,500. And so obviously as time goes on, this descending line of resistance will obviously lower in price. So eventually at some point the price will have to test and eventually break out above this line. Obviously it's just a question of when that actually happens. And obviously due to the nature of this being a descending line of resistance, the longer we take to actually break out, the lower the price will go go in the meantime. So obviously for the bulls out there, we need to see a breakout very soon above this line in order to avoid further bearish price action. And obviously right now, at least as of recording this video, the price of Bitcoin is getting pretty close again to this line, potentially coming in for another test of this line of resistance. But obviously, at least for now, it's still acting as strong resistance. We've seen many rejections from this line right here. And of course, even if we see a temporary breakout above the line, we need to actually confirm the breakout with at least a solid daily candle close confirming above this line, which for now, that has not happened. And if we're zooming further into the short term, taking a look at the 3-hour Bitcoin price chart, obviously over the last couple of days, we bounced from pretty much perfectly this level of support sitting at around 81.5k to 81.6k. So for now, expect a lot of support around there, as I've said previously, before these perfect bounces here. And as for resistance, we rejected from pretty much exactly this line of resistance at around 84.5k. So once again, as I've said recently here on the channel, expect resistance at 84.5k. And we could also find a small amount of resistance right here, considering over the last one day, we broke back below this previous level of resistance, and that's sitting at around 83.5k. So we could find just a small amount of resistance around there. And as for further support towards the downside, if we break below around 81,500, in that case, we'll likely find more short-term support at 80,000 and more support at around 78.5k. And obviously, if the price breaks to the downside below that level or breaks out above around 84,500, in that situation, simply focus on these other levels of support and resistance that I mentioned earlier. And so overall, that is what I'm expecting in the somewhat mid-term. The mid to longer term is in a period of weeks or months, potentially the rest of this year, but most likely at weeks or months based on this bearish divergence still affecting the price of Bitcoin here. But if we're looking at the immediate short term, what I expect just for the next one day, give or take, is honestly a bit of choppy sideways price action as a very likely scenario. And this is because of a couple of different reasons. First of all, at least in the short term, it is quite clear that for Bitcoin, we are simply lacking momentum to either direction. We're basically bouncing between support and resistance. So we're clearly forming a bit of a sideways price range. That's one of the reasons. And also, at least in my opinion, I think that basically a lot of people in the crypto market right now are waiting to see what the stock market's going to do on Monday, because obviously we finished the trading week for the stock market, the US stock market, in a very bad situation. On Thursday and Friday, we saw some of the worst days in recent history for the US stock market. And if you want to know more about all of that and the details behind that, check out my last few videos here on the channel if you're new to the channel. But basically, we had a very bad end of the week for the US stock market. And of course, the US stock market, in case you're new to all of this, is closed for trading over the weekend. There's no trading happening. And so obviously it opens back up again in the new week. And I think, at least in my opinion, a lot of people in the crypto market are just simply waiting to see what stocks are going to do potentially in the new week in order to figure out what could be likely for Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market. And so in the meantime, once again, as I just said earlier, over the next one day or so for the rest of the weekend, we'll likely just basically chop around sideways for a little while in anticipation of what might happen on Monday. And so that is what I'm expecting in the short term for Bitcoin and the kind of mid to longer term for Bitcoin. And of course, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, personally, I'm taking a lot of my crypto trades over on BTNX. So I'll make sure to leave a link to BTNX below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim some massive trading bonuses, like for example, up to 23,000 USDT as a trading bonus onto your BTNX account, but only if you use that link to actually make your account. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Once again, first link below this video. And in case you're wondering, BTNX is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want BTNX as an exchange, there's also 2bit as another option out there, another exchange that I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video as well. And in case you're wondering, that link can also claim you some massive trading bonuses over here as well. And on top of that, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange as well. If you're simply using that link, once again, you can claim these extra bonuses. But with that being said, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, and right now we still have a small amount of liquidity to the downside at close to 81,000 and a decent amount of liquidity to the upside at close to 89,000. And so those are some important levels on the price chart to pay attention to for the price of Bitcoin. And we also have a small amount of liquidity starting to build right now at close to 85,000. So just keep that in mind as well. And in case you're new to all of this, usually, not always, but usually the price of Bitcoin tends to move towards where there's a lot of liquidity. So just keep that in mind. These areas on the price chart are kind of acting as magnets for the price of Bitcoin, drawing Bitcoin towards where there's a lot of liquidity. But as always, we cannot ignore other points of support and resistance where the price can potentially struggle at or reject from or bounce from. But with that being said, taking a look at Ethereum on the weekly time frame, and obviously over the last one day, nothing's really changed for Ethereum on the larger situation here, the long-term situation. So right now, Ethereum's technically still within a larger bearish trend, also known as a bear market, as I've been saying for a long time now on the channel. And if we're taking a look at this 3-day time frame, obviously the price of ETH is continuing the bearish break towards the downside below this important Fibonacci level of support, which was sitting at around 1870 to 1880. And so I would now expect some resistance around that area if we see a bit of a short-term bounce. And the next significant level of support towards the downside is sitting at around 1.5k, around 1,500. And just above that, we could also find a small amount of support at around 1670, so just below 1.7k based on this previous resistance back here, flipping into new support. But in the meantime, in the somewhat shorter term, we do have a bit of short-term hope for Ethereum in the form of a potential bullish divergence, which is still currently forming, with new lower lows forming here in the price in the candle closes and higher lows continuing to form in the daily Ethereum RSI. But obviously, at least for now, we're not really seeing any strong bounces here in the RSI. And in order to actually properly confirm the bullish divergence, we need to actually see a decent bounce to actually confirm here in the RSI to cement the higher low in place. So for now, obviously, we're lacking that strength in the RSI, showing a lot of weakness in the price in the short term. But if we see a little bit more strength, at least for the next few days or so, to confirm a bounce in the RSI, confirming the bullish divergence, in that situation, as always, a bullish divergence means we're most likely going to see either just a slight bullish relief or a bit of choppy sideways price action in the coming days or weeks. Usually on the daily time frame, we're talking about a period of a couple of weeks, give or take, for a bullish divergence on the daily time frame to actually play out. But remember, as I just said, at least for now, we're simply lacking momentum. We're looking very weak here in the short term when it comes to Ethereum. So honestly, not a lot has changed over the last one day. So getting straight into the price of Solana on the weekly time frame, and right now Solana is getting very close to breaking below this critical area of support, sitting in between 120 to 130. But obviously, we still need to actually confirm a weekly candle close below 120 in order to technically confirm the break towards the downside below this support. And in case you're wondering, the next weekly candle close confirms in roughly around 1 day from now at exactly midnight UTC on Sunday night or Monday morning. And basically, if we confirm a break below 120 with a weekly candle close below that level, in that situation, we'll likely find new resistance within this area, basically previous support flipping into new resistance. And in that situation, if we actually confirm the breakdown, and then especially if we reject from that area, flipping it into new resistance, that would be very bearish for Solana. And in that situation, would likely continue a drop down towards around $90 as the next major price target. But remember, at least for now, we've not yet actually confirmed the breakdown. So for now, there's still a bit of short-term hope for Solana. But overall, obviously, we're not really seeing any significant bullish strength. So even though we've not technically confirmed the break below 120 yet, obviously, we're not really at all looking bullish, at least for now. And with that being said, taking a look at XRP on the 3-day time frame. And right now, XRP is still playing out the bearish divergence on this chart, as I've been saying for months now on the channel, since much higher prices. So not much has changed on this chart once again. And if we're taking a look at this 8-hour time frame, of course, like I've said recently, we're still playing out a short-term bullish divergence, resulting in a short-term bullish relief as one of the most common outcomes from a bullish divergence. And basically, this is history repeating. We've seen multiple bullish divergences over the last few months or so in the price of XRP on this time frame. And so, of course, at the same time as the price running into major support and also confirming a new bullish divergence in the shorter term, it was always very likely we're going to see just a slight little bounce here, or at least a bit of choppy sideways price action in the coming days, maybe for around a week, give or take, because remember, we're looking at this only on the 8-hour time frame. And so ultimately the price is still playing out exactly as I've been saying, and I continue to expect this type of price action at least over the next day, maybe longer. But remember, as I said earlier in the video, a lot of people are likely basically waiting for what the US stock market's going to do on Monday when it opens back up again. And so if, for example, the crash continues in the US stock market, then we may end up seeing a bit of bearish influence flow over to the crypto market on Monday, and of course for the rest of the new week. But with that being said, if we see some sort of bottom or short-term bottom in the stock market and a bounce on Monday, of course that can help further with this relief here in the short term. But for now, just over the next one day, I do expect a continued relief or maybe a bit of choppy sideways price action, but basically I don't expect any significant bearish price action just over the next one day. This is what I continue to expect, at least for now, just in the short term. So ultimately, that's slightly bullish over the next one day, but not a massive amount of bullish momentum. And of course, we have to point out resistance. We still have a lot of resistance at around $2.24 to $2.30. So if we continue a slight relief, expect the price to struggle around that area, which is pretty much exactly where we previously rejected from a few days ago. And if we see a breakout above around $2.30, in that situation, we have more resistance at $2.48, more resistance at $2.56, and more resistance in between $2.65 to $2.80. And with that being said, taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, and right now Chainlink is still running into this Fibonacci level of support, sitting at around 1270 to 1280. But of course, we're getting very close to potentially breaking below that level. But technically speaking, we've not yet properly confirmed a break towards the downside with candle closes here on the daily time frame for the price of Chainlink. But if we actually confirm that break towards the downside with candle closes, and especially if we fail to get back above that level, if we, for example, flip that into new resistance and reject from that level, in that situation, expect a further drop down towards around $10 per Chainlink. But remember, I want to make this clear, at least for now, we've not yet fully confirmed that break below this support at around 1270 to 1280. So there's still that possibility we could bounce from this support until we confirm that break. And as for resistance, I would expect a bit of short-term resistance at roughly around $14.20 to $14.30, and significant resistance in between around $15 to $15.50. And obviously, in terms of the larger trend, we're still very much within a larger bearish trend, as I've been saying for a long time now on the channel, since much higher prices. So once again, not much has changed in that regard. And once again, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways, you can profit from all of that price action by watching these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.